she's your great-grandma. Okay.
So I say who I am.
I have to figure out how to turn it on. I think it's this one right here. Should I try?
Sure.
Okay. Ready?
Okay. I'm Alivia Stafford, and I'm here with my great-grandma Jane. Oh, crap.
Jane.
Lee Miller Happel. And I'll be asking her questions about a one-room schoolhouse. So, where and when did you attend school?
I attended from 3rd grade to 8th grade, and my 8th grade was the last class to graduate out of Bennington number 8.
So how many years?
6 years.
Did you...
Ask her what she did before 3rd grade.
Okay, what did you do before 3rd grade?
Before 3rd grade, I attended Dunkerton Consolidated School. My father was a bus driver for the school and paid tuition. And the reason I went to country school was we had more family, so at 3rd grade level, I came back to Bennington 8, came to Bennington 8, and my brother, there were 2 of us then, so I finished my up to 8th grade at Bennington.
Did you move at all during your country school career?
No, we lived in the same spot.
Okay. How far away did you and your family live?
We were about 1.75 miles from school.
What tasks did you have to perform before leaving school?
Before leaving school, we had to get up and get dressed and get our own breakfast, and that was about it.
What did you wear to school?
Well, sometimes dresses, sometimes slacks, depending on the weather.
Mm-hmm. How did your winter clothing differ from what you wore in this warm weather?
What was that?
How did your winter weather clothing differ from what you wore in the warm weather?
Well, we had a lot more clothing on because we did, at recess, we were out in the snow sliding down the ditches on the side road. We could participate out there and play.
Approximately what time did you leave for school?
We left 7, depending on whether if we were going by foot, we left at 7. If folks were taking us, driving us, then we didn't have to go as early.
Okay. Who or with whom, if anyone, did you walk or ride with?
Usually you could bicycle or walk. We had a neighbor that was just 3/4. She was just 1 mile from the school. We walked the 3/4. We could walk to her house, and she would drive sometimes. But otherwise, we got to school by foot.
What sights and sounds do you remember from along the way?
Well, just your normal birds, and the traffic the roads weren't paved like they are now.
Was there any stops on the way home from school?
We could stop at the neighbors for a break.
What did you do once you arrived at school?
Well, if we were early, we could play outside until school time. Otherwise, we'd go in and take our lunches in and get them put away. And if the teacher had tasks for us to do, like helping her with some tasks, she would have us do that. Otherwise, we could go out and play with the kids until school time, until she rang the bell.
What were some items that were in your classroom?
Oh, we had Victrola. We had a record player and a radio. And I don't remember us having a piano.
What?
Desks, lots of desks.
Yeah.
And stove, pot-belly stove. That's where our clothes went when we had to change clothes because we get too wet with the snow. We have to have supplies. We had supplies. The teacher had supplies for us to be clothed anyway.
Yeah. So what were some supplies that your school had?
Well, we had books and that could go home with us, like a small library. Otherwise, our school supplies were, each child had to bring their own supplies. And teacher had extra paper and pencils, but we had to supply our own pencils and papers most of the time.
Okay. What items did individual students and their families provide?
What was that again? What items did they provide?
Yeah.
Well, just what I said, pencils and paper and colors and...
Yeah. Where did you get the items?
Usually at the grocery store or the closest store that we could get to.
When did your school day begin?
About 8 o'clock.
What activities began the day once students were in their seats?
We always had the Pledge of Allegiance. The student said the Pledge of Allegiance. And she would start out with, I had two lady teachers and a man teacher in those 6 years. And usually they would start out with the younger classes. And we would be doing, if we had some homework to do or some reading to do. And then sometimes we would, we'd have tasks to do at our seats while she was working with the younger children.
Describe how the teachers organized the school day's lessons.
Now, it usually started with the younger ones and then the older ones, and the older ones could help once the younger ones were through. The older ones could help that weren't the mental ages. The older ones could help the younger ones with their tasks that they had to do at times. and it just kept everybody busy.
How did the day's experience vary between the grade levels?
How did they vary?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes she would change and start with the older ones, but usually it was the younger ones first.
Yeah. How many students were in your grade, and then how many students were in your school?
Well, usually there were between 25 and 15 and 25. In my class, there were 3 in 8th grade. So, and then they were divided up amongst, you didn't have all the year classes. But,
What are some lessons, activities that you remember?
well, I remember putting on plays. We'd curtain off half of the school house with curtains, and we put on plays for, like, president's birthday or Valentine's, Christmas. We always had a Christmas program, but we put on plays for those special days.
Okay. And then, what subjects were your favorite and why?
You know, I think that was probably the most fun, was doing the programs and something different.
What subjects were your least favorite and why?
You know, I enjoyed our music. It was we had it from Ames on the radio, and I still have some of the books, so I'll have to dig those out. It was through Ames, a program, and music and math.
How much did you interact with others during your lessons?
In our lessons?
Yeah.
Well, when we were with the teacher, we had to interact.
Did the teacher have any helpers? If so, what were their roles?
No, I mean, it was just the kids helping kids.
What roles did your classroom have?
What rules?
Yeah.
Well, raising your hand if you needed her help. But, and to use the bathroom, you had to use your hand, because that was an outdoor facility.
What discipline techniques were used to enforce the rules, and how effective were they?
Usually in your seat with your head down, and it seemed to work.
What were your classroom procedures for going to the outhouse?
What were your
Classroom procedures for going to the outhouse.
I still didn't.
What were your classroom procedures for going to the outhouse?
Oh, okay. Raise your hand, yeah.
How did you get the teacher's attention when you needed to ask a question?
Well, she usually would see it.
Did you, or how did you know it was time for lunch?
Did you know?
How did you know it was time for lunch?
Used to by the clock.
Did you bring your own lunch, or was the noon meal provided in any other way?
No, we brought our own lunches and lunch pails.
If you brought your lunch, what did you carry in it?
Lunch pail, normal lunch sandwich and some fruit or veggies, raw veggies. We had a hot plate, so you could heat up soup or anything else on the hot plate.
Where were the lunch pails kept if you used them?
They were in the entryway where the water cooler was. And the water cooler, they brought the water from a neighbor, an older couple, brought the water about a quarter of a mile. No, it wasn't, it hadn't even been a quarter of a mile. And brought the water for us to have in the water cooler. Lunch pails were in that entryway too.
Where and when did you and your students eat lunch?
We usually ate in our seats or we could eat at a table too. We had tables where the teacher worked with groups, could eat there, wherever we were comfortable.
What did you eat at lunchtime, and how did your meals compare to those of your students?
I guess we really didn't compare. We probably shared sometimes.
How long was your lunchtime?
About a half hour.
What did you do at recess time?
Recess time was games outside. There was equipment, bars and slings, and played a lot of kickball and softball. Annie over. I was over the schoolhouse and over the woodshed.
How did the country school day end?
Well, just another day. It was another day, and when it was time to go, and I don't remember just what time we did close the school door, but we had the older ones help get chalkboards lined up and the erasers dusted and
Who are your teachers?
Mrs. Munson, Mrs. Norma Munson, and Mr. Richard Hill, and Irene Kramer.
Where did your teachers live?
Mrs. Munson lived in Waterloo, and Mr. Hill lived in Cedar Falls, and Irene at the time lived in the community.
How often did you see your teachers outside of the school day?
Irene we'd see quite often. Otherwise, the other two we didn't see a whole lot.
What roles did students have in the upkeep of the classroom?
They helped the teacher with jobs that she needed help with that we could do. And the parents would come in and help too at times. We had parents visit quite often.
Who helped take care of the schoolhouse?
Oh, that was parents.
What sorts of extra supplies did your school have?
Well, I mean, for the kids,
Yeah.
paper and pencils and those extra supplies if they didn't have them. And they had to have wood and coal for the stove. Up to the teacher to get that going when we needed it.
Yep. So you talked about your school having a library earlier, so how did that operate?
It was just check it out with the teacher before you took it home. And she evidently got that from the county somehow.
How did you prepare for your 8th grade exams?
I don't remember an 8th grade exam, so it evidently wasn't too bad.
Did you have an 8th grade graduation ceremony?
Yes, that was at Mount Hope Church. And it was a ceremony and a party. We had families, all the families were invited from the school, and teachers were there from all the country schools that were going to be closed, that hadn't closed. So.
What did you wear to the ceremony?
Oh, I had a fancy dress. It was a dress-up occasion.
Who were your other 2 classmates' names? Or what were?
One, I ended up with this one because Vincent moved with, the boy in my class moved to south of here. And Shirley Fuller was the other student in my class.
What occurred during the ceremony?
What occurred at the ceremony?
Yeah.
They just presented us with a certificate graduation.
What was the most meaningful part of your graduation ceremony?
On to the big school.
What did you do after graduation?
After I graduated from 8th grade, I went down to Dunkerton and school.
How did the town school, high school, compare to the country school?
It was all bigger, of course. I had started my first 3 years there, so I knew a lot of the kids, which helped. But everything was larger.
How were parents and community members involved with the school?
Not as involved as at the one-room schoolhouse.
What did you do once you left the school? Chores, socializing, and did you have homework?
Once I left school,
Yeah. Or once you left the one-room schoolhouse?
Dunkerton schoolhouse,
Yeah.
we had chores to do. They had eggs. I had eggs together and wash because we sold the eggs. And we had all kinds of animals. We had rabbits and dogs and cats and horses, and Dad also ran a milk truck earlier years.
What might be a typical night's homework?
Oh, I didn't have a lot of homework.
How did stuff like quarantines, tornadoes, floods, affect your school and communities?
That brought the community together. That brought more parents, more activity at Dunkerton, and it seemed to come together.
What special events were held at your school?
Well, they had Christmas program. It was one big program for the primary and the high school, middle school.
In what other ways was the school building or yard used?
Well, I don't know.
What was your favorite part of the day?
Favorite part of the day at Dunkerton?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just school as usual.
Did you have a favorite part of the day at the country school or no?
Did I have what?
A favorite part of the day at the country school?
Part of the day at country school?
Yeah.
No, I enjoyed school, so it didn't matter where I was at.
What is the worst memory that you have from the country school?
The outhouse.
What lessons from country school might we benefit from today?
Now, I think the doing together, helping each other.
Could one-room schoolhouses be successful in today's world?
I don't know.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say?
No, that pretty well covers it.